There we go.
Well, I hope we're live. Otherwise, I just made the doo-doo theme music
for
all
me.
on my own. For you,
I got to hear it. Just me, my own.
You got to hear me sing the theme music.
You serenaded me. Yeah.
Apparently, it's just a Friday. It is Friday, July 17th. We had a skip week last week because.
Do you have a good reason?
I didn't. I just didn't want to do the show.
I'll be honest. A good reason? Last week. Let's just be honest with our beloved audience.
We were done. Todd and I actually came in and I was all ready to go. I called Todd and I'm like, oh, I'm not there.
We didn't have that much last week, and I think Doug was just like, this week's been a long week. We're fried. We deserve a week.
I'm done. So I have to restore the episode numbers to it. I mean, we are up there. We're in like the 170s for doing this show. Yeah.
And we still have like no clue what we're doing. Like we just like barely make it every week. That's not quite true.
Yeah, if you count special editions or whatever it is. I mean, it was we've been doing this for years now. Which is kind of crazy when you think about it. All right, so I have fun stuff this week. Some off the I went and dug into Exchange and found some cool stuff happening inside of Exchange. I get no security stuff, a lot of Teams, some remote work stuff. Just kind of a hodgepodge of stuff. Teams had some amazing stuff, some brainwave stuff, because why not?
Like actual brainwaves, yeah.
And Outlook and Outlook Mobile, and then one Exchange security policy announcement around how policies actually work with interpreted conditional access rules against mobile device policies and how those things conflate together within, because it doesn't work like most people think it works. And so I want to make sure everybody understands how it does work and how it's going to work in August, which is how it should have been working, in my opinion. Like the documentation was, I always say the biggest chasm you can leap is the gap between knowledge and understanding.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Like I always call it the infinite chasm. Oh, you went from knowledge and now you understand. Well, I crossed a gap on this one and I was like, ooh, I should share that. And I'm sure some people will be like, what? But because now you're going to have understanding, maybe, or not. So that's what I got. But you are up first.
We had a comment in the chat that said, referring back to our opening, said we all need a little brutal honesty these days. I agree. I agree with that. All right. So
where was your show? I didn't want to do it.
Yeah, so, we were being lazy. Okay. Run multiple concurrent UI flows on a single. So we're doing UI flows. All right. This is cool. This is just higher density, right? For your UI flows. So this enables you, if you're on a Windows Server 2016 or 2019, of course, with the on-prem gateway installed, allows you to have multiple user sessions going just to make more effective use of the compute resources that you have. I think this just makes sense, and it's a good thing to do, and will enable you to be more.
It's like terminal server style usage, or
what do you mean?
I mean, no, it is. All right. So you will need remote desktop services enabled. All right, cool. Yep. So you have to have RDS deployed in the server, so they're using terminal services. Cool.
Yeah. So just another step along the maturity curve. More density equals cost savings equals more efficient use of resources. There you go.
I would say if you were going to do that, you should probably put some operational monitoring on the concurrent session count. If you were previously at a 1 and you want to go to concurrency, you'd probably want to put some operational monitoring in case you get stalled out threads and it spins, right? I mean, it has some built-in termination that's pretty darn good, but it'd be good to put an operational metric wrapper around the outside of it. So,
Yeah, totally. Cool. There we go. I'm not going to go through each one of these. Just a quick update on some new connectors.
I would like each one in depth, please.
Okay. So. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's buckle up. Which one did shifts? Of course, I'm going to focus on the stuff that I know. A lot of these are third party, so I feel bad that I'm kind of ignoring those in lieu of talking about shifts. But we've used shifts internally, even at the MTC, to schedule people and ad hoc kind of things to do that. So being able to use this with Power Automate and Power Apps, rock and roll. So do you want to talk about how we've used shifts internally? We used it during the COVID response, right?
So we didn't. We actually didn't use shifts per se.
Okay.
We used our appointments and the
That's
other
right.
half of that equation.
That's right.
But I have had customers use shifts to schedule coverage for like nonprofit events, volunteer events, and all the rest of the stuff back when it was Staff Hub. And
Yeah.
so I've been waiting for it to come over and get all these integrations so I could go back and see if you can still use it for those kind of things. Because there are times, even if you're like a knowledge worker, where you are participatory in a shifts fabric, and we
Right.
often use like calendars and the whatever it is. Think about like volunteering for your kids' schools. There's probably some website that coordinates your volunteerism shifts.
Yep.
And if you're signed up to be at the candy booth, but we don't often have those kind of tools inside for other uses that are legit business ones. And so we use Microsoft Bookings, which used to be a key part of it to drive our stuff internally. And Bookings, one of my customers emailed me after we did the episode on Bookings a while back, who said, yeah, they use it internally to allow external vendors to get like help desk assistance. And like they were a customer. They're like, yeah, we've been using it for a while. It works great. And there's all sorts of capabilities on top of that.
That's great. All right, well, take a look at these and see if there's anything that works for you here. All right, moving on to, I've got Power BI all the way down from here. Couple new things. New contact list for Power BI apps. So you now have the capability to customize who gets shown as a contact for a Power BI app for support, right? So previously it was the publisher, but now it can be who's in the workspace or just some other folks that maybe aren't even related to, people that are in the workspace. So this just gives you more flexibility as just makes sense. This one's nice too. So having to do still with apps, who is allowed to determine what content goes into an app, right? So which reports, which dashboards, which data sets, and then are those people allowed to update an app? So we now have a checkbox that lets us say, okay, allow contributors to also do that. Previously, you had to be an admin to be able to add content and then update an app, and now you can optionally allow contributors to do that. So more flexibility in your lifecycle management of your Power BI apps.
That's cool.
All right. Yeah. All right. This one's a big one. There's one big one that I'm going to cover on its own next. But the July 2020 update for Power BI Desktop. I actually thought this first feature would be a good name for a band. Gradient Legend. Wouldn't that be a good band name? It just seems like it would be. So for these various visuals here, you can have a Gradient Legend, which is great, so you can understand what your data looks like there. Customizing the slicer header seems like a simple one, but rather than having something like this, you can just change it to game type, and it makes more sense. Relative time filter is GA. Enhancements to Q&A with some field synonyms. I thought this one was really cool, where this has been a problem in the past, where let's say you have multiple date fields in your model, and then this example where and date fields is the one I run into a lot, where you're saying, all right, I want to see the top 5 cities by sales for the last year. Okay, last year based on what? Purchase date, ship date, return date?
Yeah, I found a lot of things in here that I could use to determine it, and if I just pick one, I'm probably not going to get it right.
Right. So it's picking one for you. It's highlighting in orange and saying it's ambiguous, and then it's actually showing you, hey, I picked purchase date. So if that's not what you want, you can.
I'd go morph it.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought that was pretty nice. Now, we've had mapping capabilities inside Power BI for some time, right? So we have the out-of-the-box map visual that's been there forever. We have ArcGIS that's been in there from Esri for a little bit, but of course that requires a third-party kind of deal. You can even we've had a lot of people do amazing things with the R visuals inside of Power BI for really kind of customized things. But we're bringing in the really powerful Azure Maps capability as a first step here. So we have a bubble layer, which is very similar to what you have there, but you have control over how you're doing scaling, which is nice. So you do logarithmic or cubic Bezier curves based on how you want to scale the size of your bubbles, which is pretty nice. But then we also, if anybody remembers Power Maps, or even the codename
I do. I loved that. You could record a movie and do of course I do.
Yeah. Inside of Excel, like back in 7 years ago.
I know. We did this. Laura Rebelke,
Yeah.
aka Sequel Gal, did this amazing presentation on the history of nuclear experimentation
Yep.
on with one of these things showing power maps and stuff. So shout out to Laura, who is now, in up in the ranks of our engineering team, right?
Yeah.
So, but man, she just killed it with that stuff. Of course, she killed it with everything data and still does. So, who's surprised? But yeah, it was a cool visual.
Here's some things here. This is cool. Start to bring in more layers with the GeoJSON layers. So this is like showing real estate values with population density here. And then even be able to bring in custom tiles where it's like overlaying weather with, I think this is like sales of sunglasses. But really getting closer to something that's more powerful, because the out of the box map visual is really great for very basic things, but you couldn't do things like this. You'd have to like bounce over to like Esri to get something closer to this. So this is a first step. So hopefully we obviously will continue to get this kind of more integrated over time. Traffic overlays, of course, as well. So pretty great. Before we get to this is one where frankly I saw that we added it and I'm like, wow, I'm almost surprised we haven't done this before. We basically went back and grabbed 49 financial functions, right, from Excel, which of course are probably used insanely a lot, and just added them to DAX, right? So if you know how to use these functions like future value or present value inside of Excel, they will now just kind of work the way you would expect them to work inside of Power BI using DAX. So to me, this is like a no-brainer that we did this. Makes a lot of sense, but it's good work nonetheless. Model view is now GA for live connections. So if you're connecting to a tabular model or a Power BI data set live, you can see the tables and how they relate to each other. That's awesome. This one is great. You can now globally disable automatic type detection in Power BI Desktop. So what that means is if you're like bringing in CSVs or other files, and you don't want Power BI to try to be helpful by determining the data types by inspecting the data, you can now turn that off forever, right? So
if you're a pro person, go hit this box.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you're not gonna like what it does anyway.
Yeah, exactly. This goes back to like some of the time intelligence stuff before, where it's like, okay, I just want to turn this off forever.
Thank you. Because at first I was super happy to get it there, and then I started to understand the nature of how to do time well myself, and I'm like, so it's things you appreciate in the beginning, but once you get good, you're like,
You got it. That's exactly right. All right. So this is the big daddy this month, the launch external tools. So I'm going to actually hop over to another tab here. And I think maybe I talked about this was coming at some point in the past. I vaguely remember maybe mentioning this, but this is the first preview shipping of this. So just a little bit of history in Power BI. The components that make up Power BI, the in-memory analytics engine, which is based on analysis services, go back a very long time. So if you've heard of like analysis services tabular, that is what, and Power Pivot, that's the same engine that Power BI is based on. And these things are enterprise tools. They even have a longer heritage than even tabular, going back well over a decade or almost 20 years. So a long history and heritage in the enterprise for like lifecycle management, developer types of things, being able to get under the hood and tweak and change. And where a lot of these things, even though Power BI has been based on the same technology, hasn't really been surfaced in the same way as the enterprise version of those tools in like analysis services and SQL Server. That's really changed in the last 6 to 9 months with like in the service, the release of the XMLA endpoints, right? We've talked about that. And now being able to plug in what we're calling external tools inside of Power BI Desktop. So why is this relevant? So there's also a heritage of third-party tools in the ecosystem that are amazing. So DAX Editor, DAX Studio, Tabular Editor.
Yeah, that's the one I've used, right?
Like
you introduced me to that when we first met. You were like, yeah, you need this.
Yeah, so like I'm going to jump down to DAX Studio for a second. So if you're doing anything with DAX beyond just very basic It's like, which this would qualify. This is beyond very basic, what you're looking at here. The built-in editor inside Power BI Desktop is slightly, is lacking, okay? So what you can now do is launch DAX Studio directly from Power BI Desktop if you have it installed on your machine, connected directly to your model. So it's just like almost like another tool baked into desktop. That's kind of the idea.
It's like having a fly-out editor, fly-out advanced editors, or
exactly. I think that's the appropriate way to think about it, right? So you can like format your queries. You can do performance analytics. You can really kind of debug your DAX because once you're doing some really serious stuff, performance matters, and getting down in the weeds really matters. ALM Toolkit for doing things like comparing diffing, from one version to the other, right? And seeing what's changed. So you can see here, this is comparing two different Power BI desktop files and what's changed between the two of them. So you can see, what's been going on. And then Tabular Editor is really showing you everything that's going on inside of your model and being able to do things like set up perspectives and translations and things like that Power BI Desktop doesn't yet support. So really, I would consider these are advanced tools, okay? Power BI is really easy to use and get started and do like straightforward basic things, but it's also an enterprise analytics platform. So you should have these enterprise advanced tools available to you if you need them. So there they are. And not only that, and I'm really curious to start to see if people take advantage of this. Actually, I think the link is up here. If you go to, AKMS external tools, we show you how to actually register another third-party tool, whether that's something that you have in your own organization that you've created or something else. Another one that's going to be coming soon, not surprisingly, is the report builder, right? So if you are creating Power BI data sets on your local machine and you want to create Power BI reports, tabular or paginated reports, you can do that with now on your local machine without deploying to Power BI first. So that is very cool. That's coming soon. But yeah, I'm really excited about this one, Doug. Awesome. Real quick, Monitor. I talked recently about this. Monitor for Power Apps now supports model-driven apps. We talked about how that supports Canvas apps not too long ago. Now it supports model-driven. And this one I wanted to kind of just call out. I saw this and I was a little bit. I'm like, cool, happy birthday, Power BI. Personally, I think this is a little bit revisionist history. I think especially the Power BI brand is a little older than 5 years. I know what they're doing with 5 years. The Power BI that we know and love today is 5 years old.
There was sort of a product reboot.
Yeah. Right? So there was some I would call them dark days where we weren't quite there. Let's say that. So like V1 of Power BI, which was originally called like Power BI for Office 365. Was not the enterprise tool that I just talked about. So we've come a very, very long way in 5 years on the current Power BI. And I continue to be amazed every month with what the team does. So happy birthday.
I remember when, there was actually some customers were irritated with us for forking it away from the core of Office. Remember that? Then we were like, look, no one wants to touch or upgrade Office. And we want to innovate rapidly on top of this data visualization tool. Think about all the innovations we've covered in the 100 and however many episodes, 170 episodes.
Every week I've got something.
Yeah, and those upgrades can come in. They roll in as small incremental things, and you get to choose, kind of how you evolve, or you can get automatic from the store. 64-bit alongside 32-bit Office, because we used to be constrained on memory space for high performance data analytics. All these things, all because we really took a move at that point and turned it into an enterprise grade tool that had its own evolution cycle. So amazing work.
So real quick, I had Nash ask in the chat, any suggestions on those DAX editors versus VS Code and the DAX plugin? To me, I haven't really leveraged. I haven't really used. I'm a VS Code user, but I haven't really used the. I use it for like writing code, whether I'm doing Go, C#. I haven't done a lot of DAX in VS Code, but I can tell you that DAX Studio is like the gold standard.
Yeah, I have an opinion there, which is really based on how far are you going to go to look at those other advanced features around performance or whatever it is. You're not going to get that in a VS Code. You're just going to get an editor. you're not going to get any of the supplemental DAX features that that are out there. You're just going to get a code editor. Now there
I'm
may
not
be
super familiar with the DAX plugin, but I can tell you Doug's probably right. Like that's probably not
now
rich.
it's not like that community in VS Code couldn't go to town and start replicating that and turn it into, but I don't believe it is as mature. So that'd be my assessment of that. And plus, you were the one who taught me about it, and it busted my crazy recursive loop I did with that IP address update. Because I had written that horribly backwards. I was essentially taking every row and then scanning a table of the internet addresses and their things. It was never going to come back as a result. And I just, you look at something in an editor and you're like, oh, this looks legit. And, when you go to a whiteboard and you kind of sketch it out, or you have a tool looking at it, you get a different lens on it.
I think when the community is rallied around something and is passionate around it and updates, and you have these projects that are on GitHub and get updated regularly. Like I love when we embrace those, right? So there we go.
Yeah, I don't see why we wouldn't. So I mean, whatever pick your poison. I think I will remain a user of.
I would say use whatever you want, but
use whatever makes you the most comfortable. But as you advance your skills, you're probably going to end up in the other one. Is my personal opinion, but that's all about how good your kung fu is. All right, that's it for you.
Yes, sir.
All right, awesome. Well, then I'm going to queue up a little bit over here.
Great.
So I want to start out by a little bit of Outlook love, right? So they have this thing that says to get more of your control of your day with M365, and you're like, all right, well, what do they mean by more control of your day? And so there is new features within Outlook for Android for finding your meetings in one place with the meeting insight stuff. Like here's the people who are coming, the emails, whatever else it is. If you're on the go and prepping for meetings, some of those pro features when you used to click on it in full-sized Outlook where you'd see previous attachments and files and things that you're about. I always call this like showing up for the meeting and appearing instantly connected to the, well, as I sent you that file last week, we're going to talk like, well, of course I know about that file, right? So you used to have that little, fly out at the bottom of Outlook. So we're bringing a lot of those contextual tools about meetings to it. Yep. There's also a whole bunch more of, I know you're a huge Outlook for the web person now, right?
Yep.
And these features do eventually, not in a huge time frame roll in, but they have this really nice thing for the meeting details and to fly out meeting controls and the meeting details that are all contextually in there, including the meeting insights in the web views, which are really pretty slick on top of it. And here's the one I really wanted to cover. Yeah, we know Outlook and Teams work together, but surprise, surprise, you might get invited to an online meeting from a platform that is not Microsoft. And so now on the Outlook, the one-tap join experience, we're supporting third parties for one-tap join. No, I don't know if you'd seen that.
Yep.
All of a sudden I watched, I go, oh, that is awesome, right? So so if you're using services such as Zoom or WebEx or the major industrial services, Outlook clients trying to become savvier and savvier about giving you a one-touch join experience on top of that.
That's great.
Yep. There's also a couple of things you can do that have things. You can go ahead and now there's a default behavior if you want to. Remember how you have to go to remember on your mobile to create an online meeting? Well, now you can set a default, much back to our global defaults thing, where every time I make a meeting, please don't make me remember to check that box. I'm a busy human being. I just want to make meetings. I'm not in the office anymore. They're all going to be virtual meetings. Why do I need to keep checking the dang, and people, you forgot to put the online meeting in, right? So we're getting rid of some of those kind of things on top of it. And so there's the future work thing, which we'll cover in a second. But they're now rolling out adding your personal calendar to your work account so you can see your personal events overlaid.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah. And so you can basically go put it in, and then you've got all of your stuff. So you can be like, oh, that's right. That was the vacation week that, because if you're like me and, like my son or someone will put their account, like, moving back to college or whatever it is. And I'll be like, that'll be on the family calendar. And so that's nice if you've done all that work, but they're making it easier in order to just have that. Now, normally you might say, but I don't want to we're not talking about bringing all that data together. We're bringing the calendar data over, right? So I'm not requiring multiple inboxes to be present. I don't want to clutter up my mail. I just want that combined calendar view.
And can I assume like we're offering multiple services there? Outlook, Gmail.
I haven't dug in. I'm assuming so. I will get an answer and let you know. Okay. I would guess. It just seems to be supporting any account. So I will try it out.
Right? I'm trying to collect all the Pokemon.
No, there it is. Yeah, you saw it. At least from us and Google. So you got at least two of them.
90% of humans, I would imagine.
Yeah, for calendaring and stuff. I would want to check to see if Apple is supported as well, but I will find out an answer and see if I can tweet it out or something. And then, with more people taking advantage of schedules, right? So you want to do, the old scheduled email delivery that used to rely on your computer to be online and stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Not anymore.
That's great.
You'll be able to schedule email delivery. So I could say, I know Todd's out. I don't want him to feel compelled to do this, or
Yes.
I want my team to get this in the morning. I happen to be working late, but I don't want to. Like I struggle with that a lot, where I'm like, I have a little window of time to get something done, and then I feel like I'm injecting because now we have flexible work. You're like, oh, well, now I can work whenever I want to, but then that also can intrude on someone else's flexible work. So I feel like this is giving us a little more rationalized capability on top of it.
I think that allows you to set a good example as a manager, perhaps, or a leader. But it also does, there's sometimes where someone may be more likely to see your email, right? So it allows you to do strategic delivery. Because I know someone will be at their desk at 1:30, right?
Yeah, fair enough. But don't do the whole thing like the people say, well, LinkedIn, people read their stuff more on Sunday. Like, don't be that person. Like, use it for its intended purpose, right?
Yeah.
So then they have the easily creating a task from a mobile email message.
Oh,
so it'll flip. Yeah, there's a lot in this post, isn't there? Like, I was like, the post title.
What were those? I didn't catch it.
Yeah. Okay. You can add a task to do from within it. And then you can pop over to view it in to do. And then GA is highlight part of an email and add it as a task.
This is like
right. So so I thought, man, this started out with this little puffy people on a couch. And I'm like, there's a lot of stuff in this post. And if you didn't keep scrolling, you wouldn't know all of these things. You can also plan your tasks when their tasks need to be advanced in your My Day view, so you can do task layouts from a calendar point of view and perspective. There's their Cortana stuff, which I think is actually going to come back around to be very cool.
Yes.
For the reminders and the AI, and I think it's found its home and its purpose a little bit. So I like that. You can get a little break between meetings by scheduling end appointments and meetings early, so you get the little time pad things on top of it. And then the Outlook and Android, the play my emails in Outlook, so you can see the little like playthrough kind of thing on top of it.
Yep.
So this is a lot.
That was heavy, man. That was great. By the way, that feature is awesome, but honestly, I find myself not using it much these days because I find it most useful in the car, right? And ask me how often I'm driving my car lately. Not
fair. No, same here. All right, so then next up on my hit parade was the leaked, then ratified announcement around the big new views than Teams. Let's go all about Teams for a little bit, shall we? There is the whole Together mode on top of it. So Together mode is absolutely fascinating from an overall standpoint. So we have dynamic mode, large gallery view mode, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So they've all become used to video filters, but now you can do slight adjustments. So you get a little more of a tuning for that kind of stuff. And we all saw up top, the giant gallery view, and the vision video for this shows the next few months of kind of like what they're going to be doing with it, where you can pick different kinds of backdrops with conference rooms. Now, I don't know, have you tried this mode?
Oh yeah. It's
actually consistently laid out, so you can virtually high five people.
It's pretty cool.
And we were gonna mess around as the directors and have different like soda cans and stuff, sort of pass them across from one to the other and have it shift.
Oh, that's so smart.
And take to pass it down or whatever. I mean, you can have a little bit of fun with this. Yeah. And there's actually some cognition around this, which I thought was absolutely fascinating.
I can't wait to dive.
Where over in the Future of Work blog post, which I have referenced on it, they talk about hey, what's about meeting fatigue and the cognition for all that kind of stuff? And then they had this one, which Todd and I both went, really?
Wow.
If you have everyone in a bunch of micro squares, your brain is much more active processing all that background visual imagery than if you bring them together into a consistent UI. So people are like, that's kind of a cheesy view, but it turns out cognitively, it's less active for you. Now the question is, what does that mean for you?
Right.
Will it result in substantially worse fatigue? I don't know, but apparently it's a more relaxing conference experience, which hopefully leads to decreased.
Because I think the one thing we've all gone from knowledge to understanding on recently is meeting fatigue. It's real. I mean, We had a 4-hour
I had
one
a
today.
I really do think people should read these two posts, because this one was also interesting. Everyone's like, oh, younger people are gonna be so much better at adapting to this remote work style and stuff. Au contraire, they're having a harder time, right, across demographics. But there is not a huge gap as you look at the age range by country. There is not this staggering separation, but it is tilt. I would have expected it to be tilted the other way. Does that make any sense? Like, that these old. Now it makes sense though that you and I were talking about this. Like, my kids are in late high school or college. Like, I don't have the same kind of challenges younger people do around families and everything else. So if you were to look at those under 40, you have a lot of kid challenges there that you just don't have over on the right side. Number of people in the home.
In the show before accidentally.
Yeah, I know, and that's a lot of people have had that. I was on with the CEO of a company and stuff, and her daughter came in in a diaper, just started bouncing on the bed behind her, and it was a very humanistic and fun moment. But certainly that person's having a challenge, regarding separation, and you know what? That's where we're all at. So this is just an interesting, thoughtful article around the inspection of that. Now, Teams then took that remote collaboration stuff and kept it rolling with a whole bunch of other announcements. The filters, the Reflect messaging extension. So it talks about giving managers and leaders an easy way to check in to see how people are feeling. So there's kind of that one of those sort of check-in bots, right, from an overall standpoint. They're also adding pretty soon there'll be the live reactions and the PowerPoint live stuff we covered a couple weeks back.
Oh, nice.
That's all coming in. So you get that little floating, bubbly, happy, threads and everything else that are coming in that. So that PowerPoint live presentations coming into the Teams is a roadmap. You get the chat bubbles, and they got, like I said, the little happy flags, flying out from the individual peoples on the animation on top of it. You get speaker attribution for live captions and transcripts.
I saw that light up this week inside of Microsoft, and I thought it was amazing.
It's really awesome. And incredibly difficult to do from a back-end technology perspective. Like, if you think about the composited feed and the discrete processing and then the unification back into it. Like, I lived in that world doing, speech and IVR based stuff, and, voice XML and all the rest of the stuff back in my old gig. And so to understand, anyway, very amazing. And think about this. Now you can take this transcript, you can put it over. Like, one of my customers wanted to do, they'll have like stand-up meetings when there's a crisis or an issue for tech or whatever it is. And they wanted to vault the conversation by person into a OneNote so people could go search it and play catch up against it. And then have contextual notes and the rest of those kind of things along with it. Well, now with this transcript feed, I haven't tried to grab the API or the readout, but I imagine for sure if you capstone the meeting at certain points, we can go get this stuff and go do things with it. So I think there's gonna be really cool experiences that'll be able to be built on top of this to meet some of my customers' advanced requirements for playing catch up and that kind of stuff. Interactive meetings for 1,000 and overflow, right? So if you want to bring more people together, Teams can support a view-only experience for up to 20,000 participants.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yep. Whiteboard finally got an update inside of Teams. I say finally because I've been sort of pressing on that issue. Did the real whiteboard please stand up versus the Teams embedded whiteboard? So I just kind of gave up at times and would just share the whiteboard kind of touch from the hub and just kind of
honestly very good.
It works. I mean, here's kudos to the Surface Hub team for doing an amazing, write back experience to your computer. But sometimes you want to have the separate screen where you want to have, this is my laptop and I don't want to consume it. So you don't want to do 2-device thing. And, so anyway, I'm very happy with their moving that forward. And if you have not been following Whiteboard, amazing work on Whiteboard, the templates and the feedback and the stickers and it is crazy the innovation happening in Whiteboard.
Every time we do, usually when we would be doing sessions for the MTC in person, people would, of course, ooh and ah over the Surface and ask how to get one. Now it's, what app are you using? I learned how to use that. I
did forget to warn people. We knew this was going to go long today because we skipped a week. And we're at 11:04. So sorry, stay tuned. Tune us out. There's no guilt.
You can always come back and watch the replay at 2x speed. It's okay.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't bother us in the slightest. I wonder I got to go do that, see what we sound like. That'd be kind of fun. Task app and Teams. Suggested replies. I've really enjoyed this.
Yeah.
It gets it right a staggering amount of time.
It's actually crazy.
It's really, really good.
Yeah.
The AI algorithm behind, a lot of times you just want to think like the thanks thing. And maybe it's not enough for you to say the thumbs up, because it just doesn't quite capture it. So it does a really good job of those other things. Can you make the meeting? A thumbs up doesn't really capture it. Yep, I'll be there. Like, it's a much better response to that. So anyway, it's interesting.
You know what? I had one the other day that asked, we were asking about meeting times, and it said, someone asked, does 6 a.m. work? And one of the suggested responses was, what time zone? I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing.
I mean, the AI behind this thing is pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay, so then, did you see these Teams displays?
I did.
Okay, super cool. Little companion displays, secondary. Yeah. Is it a secondary monitor with the touchscreen and some controls on it? Yes. Is it really handy? Oh, yes, it is. Mm-hmm. So, if you got those people who are like, well, I miss having that separate phone on my desk, which is not terribly useful a lot of the time, but this is like one of those companion devices. If you have a modern laptop that has those secondary displays above the keyboard, HP's got them, I know Apple's got them, those little visual command bars. This is kind of like one of those for your workspace. Where you can have the secondary, thing when you need it, but not when you don't. So pretty cool experience. And nice. By the way, I thought this one was an amazing announcement on top of it. The room remote for Teams. So you've got the ability to control it without finding the dang touch. You're across the table from it, and you're like scrambling, reaching way to the camera. You know what I mean? So let me just put myself right in front of the camera while I go ahead and hit the, there's all those kind of moments, and it saves some of those things on top of it. So a lot of amazing outcomes on top of that. So anyway, I thought there was some great stuff. I got a few more, and I promise that they're actually important ones.
Keep it going, baby.
First, there is a change coming to Exchange Online. So let's give a little Exchange love. This is the one I told you there's some knowledge and some security implications around this, which says, hey, you may rely on Exchange Online mobile device access rules to ensure only approved devices can come in. By default, the Exchange Online tenant allows access for all mobile devices, and admins can go ahead and change this behavior. But then it says, hey, Exchange mobile device can even be used to manage for Outlook for iOS. And it says what you may not know, and this is where the sentence came in, where I went and read, and I'm going to read this out loud because it's super important. What you may not know is the interaction between Exchange's mobile device access rules and Azure AD conditional access policies when accessing the Outlook for iOS for Android. It displays how it works. Current behavior: if you configure any conditional access policies, Exchange Online will skip mobile device access rules processing for iOS and Android. Repeat that one. If you have any conditional access rule, any conditional access policy, regardless of its applicability to mobile. Okay, so they go through the examples on top of this. So it turns out how it works is when Outlook for iOS or Android connects to Exchange Online, EXO does a graph API and checks if there are conditional access policies associated with that user, and if so, it skips the Exchange policies. It defaults. Says, I'm out. That engine is now in charge. I don't think a lot of people might understand. They might think I did this, and therefore this is, so that's not how it currently works. And that's why I want to do a call out, because this is a change announcement. And there is a notice for it. And if hopefully you've operationalized this stuff into your service desk, so change notices like Todd and I have shown you and everything else, and they're flowing into ServiceNow or Sharewell or whatever the heck you use. And you're absorbing these change notices and getting ready for them. But now it is going to happen on top of it. It says will prevent Exchange on Android, require device be marked client, require approved client app, and app protection policy. And so the good news, if you're utilizing one or more of these grant access controls, Outlook for iOS and Android won't be affected. So basically, it's going to the way I think it should work.
Yep.
But you do need to understand this, and it might not be currently. Hopefully you went through a test protocol and you already discovered this yourself. But if you haven't, if you were making assumptions, or the Exchange manager said, oh, I have this control over here, so each side's like the other side's got it. Now you need to understand this and to walk through it. So it is important. It's boring but important, under the boring but important category. Continuing the Exchange trend.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. And this one's for sure it. This one is just nice. Okay, now if you have ever had to recover items from Exchange as an admin, I give you the recoverable items UI. Not that we all don't love PowerShell. I love me some PowerShell, but maybe not when I want to restore a mailbox item.
Yeah, just want to go click the thing and be done. Yeah.
I want to click the thing and be done. Yeah. I don't want to remember the syntax. Now, a lot of people have saved out scripts and their sample ones. They've done all this work, whatever it is. Ta-da!
This is a good one to have a UI for.
Yeah, it's a good one to have a UI for. You see the recovered items, you go through that stuff, you click them, right? You apply the filters, you go ahead and execute that stuff. You click those things, recover the items. I got nothing else to say. It's awesome, and it's everything that it should be, and nothing it's not.
It's everything to me.
It's everything it should be, and nothing it's not. No, in all seriousness, I think there were a few things as I played with it a little, that I think it's going to need more work to get to perfect. There are still some things you're better off doing through automation, but for simple recovery tasks where you're not really doing macro level work, you're doing micro level work, pretty good scalpel to go get it on top of it. My final one is, there is this really wonderful talked about the value of information architecture, where Cashman, Susan Hanley, and Melissa Torres come together and talk about the value of having an information architecture. You know how much PJ and I, Johnson is one of the TAs in my MTC, we're super passionate about like having this information architecture and taxonomy against it. And it's going to matter so much for Cortex and everything to be able to have this knowledge network build up around your IA. And so there's this great article about covering that and how it applies to the actual user experience, targetability, search, branding, and findability on top of it. So why it's so important to go through that, line your designs up around that kind of stuff, how to design and use, deployment frameworks and templates in order to do that, to create common look and feel, and hub site and UI design based off of this kind of work.
So this is talking about using tried and true, because these, like, as a best practice, having a good thought out, well understood taxonomy information, that's not new, right?
No.
This is covering, like, here's what you get and here's why you do these things.
And an approach to leveraging it in order to line up a beautiful intranet experience as part of this architecture and hub site. So if you follow Sarah Hasse, SharePoint librarian, if you follow any of those kind of people, we've been all lecturing on top. I just think this is a nice primer if you haven't done it before, a refresher and an organized collection if you have, to say how good am I? Do we have it simple? Is it too complicated? So I liked this. I just thought it was a nice reminder. I think with Cortex coming and the Cortex office hours, hopefully people have been checking those out, that this is another one of those sort of, health check, oil change, tune-up things that are necessary in the world on top of it. So that's as much time. I have more, but I'm just going to be done right now, because we'll save it for next week. So lots of amazing going on across Teams, across Outlook, Power BI, lots of connectors, just a tremendous amount of innovation. I know it's hard to absorb it all. We have our hackathon coming up, and customers are participating in it. Microsoft always has that. And so one of the things I was talking about, as I kind of want to wrap up the show, was I would encourage people to set aside some time to just pick something and try and improve it through an open hackathon type framework. Partner with the business, do some of those things. Are you doing one internally or externally with customers? Are you up for our hackathon week or no?
No, it didn't work out this year.
So most of my group is doing something either with, or they're being mentors or proctors for things. One, we're supporting for 2 different hacks. We're supporting office hours as customers do their hacks.
Awesome.
So we're dropping in to help unstick people and everything. So we're treating it as like a customer assistance week for hackathons. We sort of filled up our slots. 2 people are actually doing real project hacks. So I got about half the team doing mentoring and assistance and help, and the other half. So the point is, some of these people are going to be attempting this stuff are from our customers who are just learning on their own, right? They just decide to tackle a project, and I think it's a exercise every company should do, is set aside some time to just go try and build, like, declare, I want to make something that does this better. And you can have business people involved. Microsoft actively encourages, like, hey man, this isn't just for our coders, this is for everyone in Microsoft to do it. And we have this active thing to say, you can go and make things better for the company or the world around you. And we support both kind of missions as we go into it. So we're heading into 2 weeks of some, a little internal focus next week, as we have our partner and internal conferences. The week after, we have, I'd imagine there'll be some announcements at our partner stuff. So we should have some new news around that. There's usually some stuff. And then next week after, we're a bunch of hackathon stuff. But the engineering teams keep rolling. So lots more to come.
All right. Well, I guess that's it. So we'll be back again next week, as far as I know. And I hope
Yeah,
everyone.
does Todd know something Doug doesn't know? Yes, we should be here. We should be happily ensconced in our
Every day I
place.
wake up and it's a new day, right?
It's a brand new day.
don't take
All right,
anything
you all be safe and good out there, and we'll see you in a week. Thanks for joining.
Peace.